19 cool things Minecraft doesn't teach you. Minecraft has plenty of great things to see, but some of those aren't too obvious. So these are some of the great things you might have missed underneath Minecraft's surface. Number 1. Minecraft's wolves have a very iconic look. And I would hope so, since we only have the one breed to choose from. But if you find yourself in a position where you're looking for a change, this might have you covered. See, while we can't have different breeds, we can have different colors. In Bedrock Edition, it's possible to spawn a glitched out red wolf like so by using the tag onTame in the summon command, which is cool, but we can push it even further. See, if you then dye it a different color, the whole thing changes. And hey, the same thing happens with the subscribe button, meaning we can get a veritable rainbow of dogs to show off in our world. And it only makes me sad this doesn't happen in Java. Number 2. Despite their shortcomings, tridents are a lot of fun to use. And they're worth keeping on hand for the Riptide Elytra combo alone. But that's apparently not their only synergy. See, if we were to instead charge up our trident and then switch to a sword as we launch out, that momentum will transfer over and we'll get something of a sword charge attack. And I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that's incredibly cool. So if you're looking for a fire aspect trident, this might be the closest you're gonna get. Though I'd be remiss if I didn't warn that this method wears down the durability on both the trident and the sword. So grab an Unbreaking book before the trial run. Number 3. Getting the different music discs in Minecraft is a risky business. And it's especially difficult to lock down a whole set. Though one little step like this makes it so much simpler. Now it's true that the game requires a skeleton to kill a creeper for the disc to drop. But what isn't mentioned is that this even works if the cause of death is indirect. So if we follow what this user did and place a skeleton with lava in front of it, we can use its now fire arrows to trigger TNT blocks and do a massive explosion on the creepers below. So while it might take some time to trap all the creepers and line up the skeleton shot, the results are hard to argue. Number 4. Ladders clearly have their place in Minecraft building, but that doesn't mean they always fit in. And I often find that wooden texture is a clash to what I'm building. So to solve that, vines are a solid alternative. Though not like this, but rather like this. See, because vines operate off of a different collision system than the ladders, we can lay out our item frames in the same space. And using those, that'll let us use map art to create invisible ladders. And from there, it's all up to you what you choose for an aesthetic, since these designs can get real open-ended. And while this answer might be more tedious than crafting some ladders, that extra effort can clearly pay off. Number 5. Truth be told, villagers aren't exactly the most cooperative. And often it's a real pain to move these Squidwards around. So since we don't have an easy way to bait or lead them around, we'll have to resort to some form of mob rule. And by that I mean, if you tuck a villager within a herd of mobs like cows and sheep, then we can use their hitboxes to drag along the villager. And while this seems ridiculous, apparently it's just crazy enough to work, even when crossing bodies of water. So while I'd much rather just lead these folks around using emeralds, I guess this mob mentality will have to do the trick. Though just make sure not to get any villagers stuck in your pig pen. Number 6. Pillagers are not the most pleasant to be around. And usually we try to keep these raiders as far from our villagers as possible. But all it takes is one boat and we can turn that around. See, we've talked in the past that it's possible to shatter the pillager's trusty crossbow. But while we used to do this with a shield, this option is much simpler. If you simply maneuver a pillager into the back seat and then sit in the front like so, then after killing some time, eventually the crossbow will break and that mob will be disarmed. As is, because the arrows can't hit us, we're able to wear down its durability without having to lose any of our own. And I think that's just great. Number 7. With the Caves and Cliffs update, Mojang brought a bunch of changes to how ores generate. But as we know, when you open the door to change, it's left wide open for exploits. And here it's no different. See, the way that diamonds generate is in some way linked to that of lapis lazuli. Meaning, if you find yourself a set of lapis ore, all you have to do is count 4 blocks north, and then dig vertically on the diamond level to find yourself some treasure. Though this could definitely be seen as an exploit, so use it at your own discretion. But if you need to fuel up on diamonds for that inevitable fix, I guess this does the trick. Number 8. To put it lightly, Minecraft's animals are not the fastest. And that becomes readily apparent when you try to relocate them to your base. And when we're trying to move these across land, we don't have something like a boat to rely on, which leads us to the skies instead. As surprising as it may seem, we can actually tie up a mob with a lead and bring it with us by using an elytra and rockets. From there, we have the chance to bring our animals over the mountains and across hundreds of blocks to their new home. And while I don't understand how the lead doesn't snap during any of this, the method is entirely possible. Just make sure to plan a safe landing. Number 9. As the old saying goes, lightning never strikes twice. But in Minecraft, that couldn't be further from the truth. And this machine shows as much. See, thanks to the Caves and Cliffs update, we can use the way the trident entity behaves and position it on top of a copper lightning rod to make a bolt of lightning every time that trident falls. The result of which is something of our own lightning generator put to use. And the potential applications of this glitch could be wide-reaching. So whether that's changing a villager breeder into a witch farm, a pig pen into piglins, or making that red subscribe button gray, thank you, by the way, this machine has a lot of opportunities. And I can't wait to see them. Number 10. Let's face it, Minecraft logic logic doesn't always make sense. And while that usually counts against us, sometimes it can work in our favor, and that'd be the case with these curved rails. Now, upon a first glance, these would seem highly impractical to build in your world, but place them side by side with powered rails, and you'll see this alternative win out and then some. And while the science here is too confusing to wrap my head around, the fact remains that creating this circle pattern can pay off in a big way. So if you find yourself wanting to make a roller coaster but your chests are empty on golden redstone, this cheaper option might be a solution. Number 11. When you're first getting into the villager market, it can be a real leg up to convert them to zombies first. Because let me tell you, that discount for curing could be a huge help towards your Emerald Beacon. Though to convert every villager, you're probably doing a lot of brewing. A lot of which is unnecessary. Let me explain. See, if you were to take your weakness potion and instead add a dragon's breath, then we can use that now lingering potion to make 8 arrows of our own, which will let us convert substantially more villagers in the future. And hey, on Bedrock, the return is even better, since we could just make a whole stack of tipped arrows from one cauldron. Number 12. Pets make for great companions, and thankfully in Minecraft, we're able to collect a few of our own. But keeping them alive is a different thing entirely, and more often than not, we just leave them at home to keep them safe. So to find that balance between safety and sidekick, Bedrock might have our solution. See, mobs over here behave pretty strangely when exposed to the right potions, meaning if we take a bunch of our pets, unload a ton of decay potions, and then heal them at the last moment, some will eventually enter into this bugged state, in which case isolate them and you've got yourself an immortal buddy. And sure, the methods might be questionable, but the results are hard to argue. Number 13. Now, I get it, sorting through your items is a pretty boring process, but to dignify that time that we're sinking in, we should at least make it look nice. And while everyone else settles for just using item frames in their chests, I think we can get a bit more creative. So why not mix our item frames and signs like so? See, because item frames behave more like entities than blocks, we can overlay the two and get something of a pop-up effect on our signs. Granted, you'll have to use blocks for this to work, but it does give an added detail to the signs that you're placing down, and I think it's a nice touch, and especially when you compare it to the competition. Number 14. By this point, I think we're all pretty familiar with creepers, so usually there's not many tricks left up their sleeves. But that said, I still know people to this day who have no clue about this fact. So let's have a PSA let you know that creepers, when under a potion effect, will explode as a lingering potion. And I'll admit, it's a pretty cool Easter egg, though I can't decide what the practical application for it would be. And more often than not, I'm guessing it gets partnered with a witch to make something of a death trap. But for whatever reason it's there, it's at least a way to give that new creeper hole a bit of color. And that's something, I guess. Number 15. When you're exploring your world, nightfall is the most common hazard. And while a bed is a quick fix, the truth is that all it takes is one monster, and then it's a pain finding a place to sleep. So if you're in that situation, a simple fix is placing your bed underwater. Seriously, after you chuck it down on the lake bed, you can sleep just the same. That and the land dwellers up above shouldn't have much speed trying to chase you, letting you safely snooze down below. So assuming there are no drown nearby, that should go over pretty smoothly, allowing us to pass the time and avoid the now burning monsters up above. Though watch out for phantoms, because apparently those can go underwater, unfortunately. Number 16. Building in Minecraft can be a rewarding task, but it also has its tedious parts. And while the fill command can help with that some, it's usually just good for filling in rectangles or cubes. Or so you thought, because apparently we can also use it for more complex patterns as well. As this Reddit user shows off, start by turning off the item drops and then fill from the second layer up with carpet. And then when you change that carpet back to your block of choice, you'll notice that the pattern only stayed where it was stacked, and the empty space is left that way. And while it's still a far cry from proper world edit tools in vanilla, this might save you some valuable time on the next project. Number 17. Now, personally, I think ropes would be a great decoration to build with, but it seems Mojang disagrees, since we currently have no way to tie leads on fences without using moss. So we'll have to get creative to use this detail. But fortunately, our new axolotl pals might just be the solution. See, by throwing one of these down next to your fence, tying it up, and then picking it back up in a water bucket, the end result will be a rope left on the fence like so. And for you building aficionados, I'm sure you can already think of ways to put that to use in your world. So while it's not an intentional feature yet, it's the closest we've got. Number 18. Minecraft's a sandbox game, there's no doubt about that, but that doesn't stop the game from setting some ground rules, and one that we're all familiar with is the ability to only place blocks on the grid, which is why a site like this is probably quite the surprise. Now folks, this isn't vanilla, but the execution's a bit sneaky. See, what's actually happening is that we have stair blocks aligned like so to give the illusion that the blocks are off the grid, and then we pour water over the nearby slabs to better cover up our tracks. And while the surprise might wear off after hearing that explanation, I still think this will be plenty cool for your next world. Minecraft. Number 19. As we've documented in the past, Minecraft has plenty of glitches in its code, and while some might ruin the fun, others are a real sight to see, and this one definitely falls in that second category. See, if we were to take a trip to the edge of Minecraft's map, some 30 million blocks from spawn, we'd reach this world border, and here's where it gets weird. See, since the border behaves so differently from other blocks, we can use its properties to mix hitboxes that we normally couldn't, and essentially push two different stairs or slabs into the same block. And while they're too glitched to use properly, it is a neat trick to show off to your friends. And with that, folks, cure that red sub button below, and have a good one. Alright?